Do you find that you often end up struggling with the same thing year after year after year? Perhaps it's a bad habit that you've been trying to break, or maybe a good habit that you've been trying to form, like going to the gym, or maybe doing some journaling, some self-improvement, some self-work. And your New Year's resolution this year was to get that done. You were going to change this year. This year was going to be the one. And you just haven't managed to do that. You're a few weeks into January, and you know those promises that you made to yourself at the start of the year, they've fallen away. You've broken them already, and it's really, really frustrating, isn't it, when we go against ourselves and we, no matter how hard we try, we just cannot seem to break out of the cycles that we're in, those struggles that we have year after year. But I want to put it to you that even if you are struggling with those same things, you've probably made a lot more progress than you think. I'll give the example for myself. When I was at university, I really, really struggled with anxiety. In fact, I struggled with anxiety so much that I ended up having to take a year out of uni and just really focus on getting myself better, learning how to manage my anxiety. I had some therapy as well, which really helped, and just getting to know myself a bit better. And then a few years later, I found myself having another really anxious episode, and I was really struggling with my mental health again. And I got really frustrated and down on myself. I was like, I thought I'd cured this. I thought I'd sorted out my anxiety. You know, I've got these tools that I use now to help me manage it, but it's just come back, and I'm struggling with it again. But what I realised through that was that although I had the same struggles, I had the same issues. Sorry, it's a little bit windy today, so my tripod is all over the place. I hope that's okay. But I found myself struggling with these same issues, but it was from a different place. I was circling those same issues, but from a higher altitude. I actually understood that what I was feeling was anxiety. And before, when I'd had that breakdown, I didn't really know what had hit me. So whilst I was still struggling with the same thing, I actually understood it better. I knew I had coping mechanisms to help me. I knew what I needed to do to get out of it. And so, although I faced the challenge, I was further ahead than I was previously when I had that time out of university. And this cycle can repeat itself in our lives quite a lot. Perhaps we are trying to break a bad habit, and we have those conversations with ourselves over and over again. We make those promises to ourselves that this time is going to be different. But I wonder whether the language that you speak to yourself with has perhaps changed from the first time you tried to break that habit. Maybe the first time you tried to break the habit or to form a good habit, it was like, this is just something I should do. You know, you didn't really feel it. You weren't really associated with it. And it didn't particularly hold much power in your life. But several years down the line, you now can see the changes that have happened in those few years and realise that, okay, if maybe I'd started this habit a couple of years earlier or given up the bad habit a few years before, perhaps now I would be in a different place. And just having that understanding and noticing that, okay, well, I haven't changed over this period of time, and now I feel myself back in that position where I know I need to. You have actually made progress already towards changing that behaviour. You're looking at it from a different perspective. You've understood the problem from a deeper level. And so whilst the change may not be visible, it actually is manifesting in you. That change is occurring. It just hasn't appeared on the outside yet. And so how can we take those struggles that we've had, those habits, those difficulties of self-image maybe that we've struggled with and are still struggling with, and how can we reframe it and move forward and move past that point? And I think a lot of that comes from reflection and understanding ourselves more. To me, I find that journaling my thoughts is by far and away the most effective way of getting out what I'm thinking and some of those struggles that I'm facing, and actually seeing for myself that, okay, I have made progress with this. It might not be the progress I want to make with it. I want my anxiety to disappear completely. That's probably not going to happen. But what is going to happen is you're going to learn, and you're going to identify those issues and those problems better. And it's going to give you the power to overcome that struggle. You've got more experience than you had last time you were struggling with that. So journaling, I would say, is probably my go-to there. Therapy is fantastic and great, and I highly, highly recommend it, but it's not accessible for everyone. And perhaps you don't feel like you're ready for that yet. But journaling, I find, is kind of a form of self-therapy. And what I tend to do, and I actually did a whole 12-week block recently where every morning I just stream of consciousness into my journal, 3 A5 pages of whatever was on my mind that day. Even if it was just silly things like, it's been snowing today, it looks lovely outside, it actually feels like winter. Silly things like that can go in there, but also the more serious things, like when we've been looking at those habits or those struggles we may be having with our emotions and our mental health. All of it goes in there, and it's really helped me to work through a lot, and I think it would be of value to you. But starting with doing 3 pages every morning can feel like quite a challenge. I get that. It's not for everyone, and actually I've been journaling for years, so it kind of felt quite natural to me. But a really good place to get you started is actually just to write a few lines every day, or maybe set yourself a timer for 5 minutes, and whatever's on your mind, just write that down. And this is actually one of the habits that I recommend in my Simple Living Blueprint, which is a free ebook you can grab from the description, which sets out a load of different habits that are very easy to build. They don't take much time, but actually can be really, really transformational for changing some of those bad habits that we may have into good habits. And it's something I've used personally and had a lot of success with. So yeah, if that sounds of interest, as I say, the link's in the description for that. But coming back to the journaling, and coming back to those struggles that we may face, I just really want you to reflect as you look at perhaps the last few weeks and see that maybe those struggles and those habits that you thought at the start of the year, this was going to be my year to change. Take a look at them in a bit more depth and reflect on them and see maybe actually whether you've made more progress towards them than you think you have. Because I guarantee you probably are further down the road than you think. And sometimes just that little bit of encouragement to see that you've actually come quite a long way is really all you need to then kickstart you on your journey to taking the next step. That's it for today. Thanks ever so much for watching. Take care. God bless.